I found his wallet at the bus stop, driver's license, credit cards, a bit of cash. Nothing unusual. But when I opened the ID, my blood ran cold. The photo was of me. It was one of those dreary autumn afternoons when the sky can't decide whether to rain or simply threaten it. I sat in Rosie's Diner, a small cafe on the outskirts of Portland, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee that had stopped being enjoyable 30 minutes ago. The place was nearly empty, just me, an elderly couple in the corner booth, and a waitress who seemed more interested in her phone than in refilling my cup. I was waiting for my order of scrambled eggs and toast, watching people hurry past the window, collars turned up against the wind. That's when I spotted it, a leather wallet lying on the ground near the bus stop across the street. Someone must have dropped it while rushing to catch the number 42 downtown. I debated whether to go get it. The logical thing would be to wait for my food, but something, call it curiosity or perhaps an innate sense of duty, made me leave a $5 bill on the table and step outside into the chilly air. The wallet was ordinary, brown leather, worn at the edges, the kind sold in department stores across the country. I picked it up and glanced around, half expecting to see someone frantically patting their pockets. The bus stop was deserted. Just turn it in at the police station, I told myself as I flipped it open, looking for ID so I could at least try to contact the owner directly. That's when my stomach dropped as if I'd stepped off a cliff. The driver's license showed my face staring back at me. Not someone who looked like me. Not a resemblance that could be explained away by coincidence. It was unmistakably me, the small scar above my right eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident, the slightly crooked smile I'd perfected to hide my dental insecurities, even the exact haircut I'd gotten last week. But the name wasn't mine, Adam Livingston. The birth date matched mine exactly, March 17, 1985. The height, weight, eye color, all identical. But the address was unfamiliar, though something about the numbers triggered a distant memory I couldn't quite place. A city bus rumbled past, sending a gust of cold air my way. I barely noticed. My fingers felt numb as I examined the rest of the wallet's contents: three $20 bills, a Wells Fargo debit card in Livingston's name, a loyalty card for Powell's Books, and a single brass key attached to a plain metal ring. I checked the license again. It looked authentic, the correct holographic state seal, proper formatting, everything. But while the wallet showed clear signs of age, cracked leather, frayed edges, the license itself appeared brand new. The issue date was only 2 weeks ago. My food at the diner was forgotten. I found myself walking to my car, the wallet heavy in my pocket like a stone. I should have gone to the police station or called the number on the back of the debit card to report it found. Instead, I punched the address from the license into my GPS. The drive took me to Selwood, an older Portland neighborhood with narrow streets lined with a mix of renovated craftsman homes and neglected apartment buildings. The address belonged to a 2-story brick apartment complex that had seen better days. Paint peeled from the window frames, and several of the exterior lights were broken. I parked across the street and sat there for several minutes, watching the building. What was I expecting to see? A doppelganger of myself walking out the front door. The rational part of my brain knew there had to be a logical explanation. Identity theft, perhaps. Or maybe a bizarre prank. Eventually, I got out of the car and approached the building. According to the mailboxes in the lobby, Adam Livingston lived in apartment 2B. I climbed the worn staircase, my footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. Standing before the door of 2B, I hesitated. What would I say if someone answered? How would I explain having this wallet? More importantly, how would I react if I came face to face with someone wearing my face? I knocked 3 times. No response. I knocked again, louder this time. The silence that followed seemed to confirm what I already suspected: no one was home. As I turned to leave, something strange happened. The door creaked open on its own, just a few inches, as if inviting me in. "Hello." I called out, pushing the door wider. "Mr. Livingston." No answer came from within the dimly lit apartment. Common sense told me to leave immediately. To close the door and walk away, perhaps call the police and let them handle this bizarre situation. But curiosity, that dangerous, irresistible force, pulled me forward. I stepped inside. The apartment was surprisingly ordinary. A small living room connected to an even smaller kitchen. A hallway presumably led to a bedroom and bathroom. Everything was neat, not obsessively so, but tidy in the way of someone who lives alone and doesn't entertain much. On the coffee table sat a half-empty cup of coffee and a folded newspaper. The coffee was still warm, its surface showing only the thinnest skin of cooling. Whoever lived here had left very recently. A faint scent hung in the air, a cologne I recognized instantly because it was the same brand I occasionally wore, though I couldn't afford to use it regularly. My eyes were drawn to the wall next to a small desk, where several photographs hung in simple frames. From where I stood, they appeared to be family photos. I moved closer, my heart pounding in my chest. The largest photo showed a family of 4, a mother, father, and 2 young boys. With a jolt, I recognized myself as one of the children, perhaps 7 or 8 years old. But that was impossible. In my family photos, I was always an only child. I stepped closer to examine the other pictures. In each one, I could identify myself at various ages: high school graduation, a fishing trip, a Christmas gathering, but with people I had never met. The settings were unfamiliar, the occasions unknown to me. One photo in particular caught my attention, a more recent shot of me standing next to an older man, both of us smiling, arms around each other's shoulders. The location appeared to be a workshop of some kind, tools hanging on the wall behind us. We looked happy, comfortable in each other's presence. But I had no idea who the man was. A chill ran through me. These weren't photoshopped images, they had the authentic wear of photos that had been handled, cherished, displayed for years. They depicted a life parallel to mine but fundamentally different. On the desk beneath the photos lay a leather-bound journal. I hesitated before opening it, knowing I was violating someone's privacy. But whose privacy? In some strange way, was I violating my own? The journal contained neat, methodical entries dating back several months. The handwriting was eerily similar to mine, though perhaps a bit more precise. I flipped to the most recent entry, dated yesterday. The patterns are converging faster than anticipated. If my calculations are correct, the first contact will occur tomorrow. Everything depends on maintaining the sequence exactly as outlined. The package must be left at precisely 2:15 p.m. If he follows the expected course of action, the cycle will continue. If not, the entry ended there, without completing the thought. A sudden noise from outside the apartment, footsteps on the stairs, sent a surge of adrenaline through me. I snapped the journal shut and quickly surveyed the room for a place to hide. Too late. The footsteps had reached the door. In a panic, I ducked into the hallway just as I heard a key turning in the lock. At the end of the hall was a bedroom, its door partially open. I slipped inside, leaving the door ajar so I could see into the hallway. From my hiding place, I heard someone enter the apartment and move around the living room. The sound of papers being shuffled, then the clink of a mug being placed in the sink. Should I reveal myself? Try to explain why I was there? Or wait for a chance to slip out unnoticed? Before I could decide, something else caught my eye. On the bedside table sat a framed photograph. Despite the dim light, I could make out the image. It was me, standing next to a woman I had never seen before. We were dressed formally, she in a white dress, I in a dark suit. A wedding photo. But I had never been married. My attention was drawn back to the hallway as the footsteps approached the bedroom. I pressed myself against the wall beside the door, hardly daring to breathe. The footsteps stopped just outside the bedroom. I could hear breathing on the other side of the door. I know you're in there. The voice was calm, measured, and, most disturbingly, identical to my own. You found the wallet. Just as you were supposed to. My mouth went dry. How could I respond to that? We don't have much time, the voice continued. They'll be here soon, and you need to understand what's happening. Slowly, I pushed the door open. Standing before me was, me. Or rather, someone who looked exactly like me, down to the small details. He wore different clothes, a dark blue sweater and gray pants, while I was in jeans and a black jacket, but otherwise, we could have been reflections of each other. He didn't seem surprised to see me. In fact, he smiled slightly, as if confirming something he already knew. Adam Livingston, I presume? I managed to say, my voice sounding strange to my ears. He nodded. And you're Daniel Cooper. I've been expecting you. How he knew my name sent another chill through me. I had not been carrying any ID when I found the wallet. What is this? I demanded, gesturing at him, at the apartment, at the impossible situation. Some kind of elaborate joke. Identity theft. Are we related somehow? It's complicated, he replied, glancing at his watch. And as I said, we don't have much time. Come with me. He turned and walked back toward the living room. After a moment's hesitation, I followed. What choice did I have? The questions burning in my mind needed answers, and he seemed to be the only one who could provide them. In the living room, Adam, it was easier to think of him by that name, despite his appearance, went to the desk and pulled out a large manila envelope. Inside this envelope is everything you need to know, he said, handing it to me. But I should warn you, once you open it, your life will never be the same. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? I replied, though my attempt at sarcasm fell flat even to my own ears. Adam's expression remained serious. 3 days ago, did you experience a momentary blackout? Just for a second or two, while you were making coffee in your kitchen. My blood ran cold. I had indeed experienced exactly that, a strange moment where the world seemed to skip, like a scratched CD. I had attributed it to lack of sleep or low blood sugar. How could you possibly know that? I whispered. Because the same thing happened to me, in this kitchen, at the exact same moment, he replied. It's happening more frequently now. The boundaries are weakening. What boundaries? What are you talking about? Adam moved to the window and peered out between the blinds. They're early, he muttered. Then, turning back to me, you need to leave. Now. Take the envelope, go somewhere safe, and read the contents. Everything is explained there. Who's early? Who's coming? I asked, but Adam was already ushering me toward the door. One more thing, he said, stopping me before I could exit. Whatever you do, don't go home. They'll look for you there first. Who will? You're not making any sense. Adam's expression softened slightly. I know this is confusing and frightening. I felt the same way when it happened to me. But you need to trust me on this. Our lives, perhaps many more, depend on it. From outside came the sound of car doors slamming. Go now, Adam urged. Use the back stairs, through the kitchen. The envelope explains everything. I clutched the envelope and moved toward the kitchen, then paused. Why me? Why is this happening? Adam's answer chilled me to the bone. Because you're next in the sequence. And if you don't play your part correctly, the whole system collapses. Before I could ask what he meant, there was a loud knock at the front door. Police. Open up. Adam gave me a final, urgent look. Go. I fled through the kitchen, finding the back stairs just where he said they would be. As I descended into the alley behind the building, I heard the apartment door being forced open, followed by shouting. I ran until my lungs burned, the mysterious envelope clutched tightly in my hand. When I finally stopped in a small park several blocks away, I sat on a bench, trying to catch my breath. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You should not have come back." And beneath that cryptic message, a series of names and dates, arranged in a column. At the top was Adam Livingston, 2023 to 2025. Below it, my own name, Daniel Cooper, 2025-. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message from an unknown number. "The wallet was just the beginning. Now you need to leave the envelope for the next person. It's the only way to maintain the sequence." I looked up from my phone, suddenly aware of footsteps approaching from behind me. Who was he? And how did he know I would come? I turned quickly, half expecting to see Adam, or perhaps another version of myself. Instead, I found myself looking at a woman in her 50s, walking a small terrier that sniffed enthusiastically at the fallen leaves. The mundane sight brought me back to reality, at least momentarily. I needed to think clearly. Either I was losing my mind, or something truly extraordinary was happening. I examined the list of names again. There were 12 in total, each with a date range. Many of the dates were in the past, stretching back decades. Adam Livingston's entry showed 2023 to 2025. Mine, starting in 2025, had no end date listed. Was this a list of, what? Identities? Iterations? Lives? I turned the paper over, hoping for more information. On the back was a hastily drawn map with an address scribbled at the bottom, 1787, Riverside Drive. Another note beneath it read, "The lockbox. Code, March 17, 85. My birthday." Whatever this was, it had been prepared specifically for me. The thought sent another chill down my spine. I needed answers, and Riverside Drive seemed like the next logical step. My car was still parked near Adam's apartment, but returning there seemed risky. If the police were involved, they might be watching it. I opted for a taxi instead, using my phone to call one to the park. The driver, a middle-aged man with a thick mustache, gave me a curious look as I told him the address. "Riverside Drive? That's mostly abandoned warehouses these days," he said. "You sure that's where you want to go?" I nodded, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "I'm meeting someone to look at a potential property investment." The lie came easily, though I wondered if my face betrayed my anxiety. The driver shrugged and pulled away from the curb. As we drove, I tried to make sense of what had happened. The most rational explanation was identity theft. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to steal my identity, including plastic surgery to look like me. But why? And how did that explain the childhood photos, or his knowledge of my momentary blackout? Another possibility, though it seemed absurd, was that Adam truly was me, another version of me from a parallel reality. The thought was so outlandish that I almost laughed out loud. Yet it might explain the uncanny similarities and differences. The taxi turned onto Riverside Drive, a desolate stretch along the Willamette River lined with dilapidated industrial buildings. Many had boarded windows and fading, "For lease" signs. "That's the address," the driver said, pointing to a 3-story brick structure that appeared slightly less neglected than its neighbors. "Want me to wait?" "Like I said, not much around here." "No, that's fine," I replied, paying the fare. "I might be a while." As the taxi pulled away, I approached the building cautiously. A faded sign above the entrance read, "Temporal Research Associates." Most of the windows were covered with metal shutters, but light leaked through gaps in a few of them. The door was locked, but beside it was a modern-looking keypad, incongruously new compared to the weathered building. I entered the code from the note, March 17, 85. A soft click, and the door unlocked. Inside, the contrast was even more striking. While the exterior suggested abandonment, the interior had been renovated into a sleek, modern facility. The lobby contained minimalist furniture, potted plants, and bright LED lighting. A reception desk stood empty. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed in the silent space. No response. On the reception desk was a computer monitor displaying a message: "Welcome, Daniel. Please proceed to Lab 3. How did they know I was coming? Was I being watched? I noticed security cameras in the corners of the ceiling, their red lights blinking steadily. Whoever operated this facility knew I was here. Down a corridor, signs marked the laboratories: Lab 1, Lab 2, and finally, Lab 3. The door to Lab 3 was slightly ajar, light spilling into the hallway. I hesitated, then pushed it open. The room was large, filled with equipment I couldn't identify, machines with digital displays, computers running complex simulations, and in the center, a glass chamber large enough for a person to stand in. But what caught my attention was the wall of photographs. Dozens of them, arranged chronologically based on the dates beneath each one. They showed different men, all with varying appearances, but with subtle similarities around the eyes and jawline. And at the end of the sequence, photographs of Adam Livingston. And me. "Fascinating, isn't it?" a voice said from behind me. I spun around to find an elderly man watching me from the doorway. He walked with a cane but moved with the deliberate precision of someone who had once been very physically capable. "Who are you?" I demanded. "What is this place?" "My name is Dr. Robert Thorne," he replied. "I founded Temporal Research Associates in 1982. As for what this place is, that's complicated. But I suspect you already have some theories." His calm demeanor was unnerving. As if finding a stranger in his laboratory was a perfectly normal occurrence. "You're expecting me," I said. It wasn't a question. "Of course," Dr. Thorne nodded. "Adam informed us you found the wallet. Right on schedule." "On schedule? Are you saying this was planned? That he deliberately lost his wallet so I would find it?" Dr. Thorne moved to a desk in the corner and sat down, gesturing for me to take the chair opposite him. After a moment's hesitation, I did. "Not lost," he corrected. "Planted. And yes, it was planned. Just as it was the previous 11 times. Previous times? You mean the other names on the list?" "Precisely." He opened a drawer and removed a folder, placing it on the desk between us. Each iteration follows the same pattern. The wallet is placed. It's found. The finder comes here. The cycle continues. I struggled to process what he was saying. "Are you telling me this has happened before? That other people have gone through exactly what I'm experiencing right now?" "Not other people," Dr. Thorne said, his eyes fixed on mine. "You. Different versions of you, from different timelines." I almost laughed, but the utter seriousness in his expression stopped me. "That's impossible." "Is it? You saw Adam. Spoke with him. How do you explain the identical appearance, the shared memories, the photographs of a life you never lived?" I had no answer for that. Dr. Thorne continued. "In 1982, we discovered something extraordinary, a natural phenomenon we call temporal resonance. Under specific conditions, parallel timelines can touch. Initially, these connections were momentary, almost imperceptible." "The blackouts," I murmured. "Yes. You experienced one recently, as did Adam. They're harmless in themselves, brief moments when two nearly identical realities align. But they're also warnings. Signs that the boundaries between timelines are weakening. And that's bad." Dr. Thorne's expression darkened. "Catastrophic. When timelines collapse into each other, both are destroyed. We learned that the hard way." He opened the folder and showed me a newspaper clipping from 1984. The headline read, "Unexplained Phenomenon, Entire Town of Millfield Disappears Overnight." My God, I whispered. An entire town. 8,732 people, Dr. Thorne confirmed grimly. One moment they existed, the next, gone, along with every physical trace of the town. As if it had never been there at all. That was our first collision event. And you think another one is coming? We know it is. The blackouts are increasing in frequency. But we found a solution, a way to stabilize the boundaries between timelines. Dr. Thorne stood and walked to the glass chamber in the center of the room. This device can transfer consciousness across timelines. It allows one version of you to temporarily inhabit another reality. These controlled crossings seem to strengthen the boundaries, preventing catastrophic collapses. Why me? I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind since this began. Out of all possible people, why am I involved in this? Dr. Thorne's answer was not what I expected. Because you're unique. Or rather, your consciousness is. In every timeline we've accessed, you exist. Most people have variants in some timelines but are entirely absent in others. You are a constant. A fixed point. He tapped his cane on the floor thoughtfully. We don't know why. Perhaps it's random chance. Perhaps it's something more. But you, or versions of you, have been helping us maintain the stability of these timelines for 40 years. I stood up, pacing the room as I tried to absorb this information. So Adam is, what? The previous me who did this? Yes. He's been acting as our anchor for the past 2 years. Now it's your turn. My turn to do what, exactly? Dr. Thorne gestured to the chamber. To take Adam's place. He'll return to his timeline, and you'll remain here, continuing his work. In 2 years, you'll pass the role to the next iteration. And if I refuse? His expression became grave. Then both our timelines collapse. Millions die. Including everyone you've ever known or loved. A heavy silence fell between us. If what he was saying was true, I had no real choice. But how could I be sure he wasn't lying? That this wasn't some elaborate deception? As if reading my thoughts, Dr. Thorne spoke again. I understand your skepticism. In your position, I would feel the same. That's why we arranged for you to meet Adam first, to see with your own eyes that what I'm telling you is possible. Even if I believe you, I said slowly, you're asking me to abandon my life. My friends, my job, everything. Dr. Thorne's expression softened slightly. Yes. It's an enormous sacrifice. One that Adam made, and the 10 before him. I wish there were another way. I thought of my life, my small apartment, my job as a graphic designer that neither fulfilled nor challenged me, the string of relationships that had never quite worked out. Was I really leaving so much behind? If I agree, I said, what happens next? You'll take Adam's place here. We'll provide everything you need, a new identity, financial support, training. For the next 2 years, you'll help us monitor timeline stability and prepare for the next transition. I walked to the wall of photographs, studying the faces of the men who had come before me. Had they all stood where I was standing now, facing the same impossible decision? What happened to them? After their 2 years were up. Dr. Thorne hesitated before answering. Some returned to versions of their original timelines. Others chose to stay in this one, living quiet lives under new identities. A few didn't survive the transition back. That last part sent a chill through me. You're saying this process can be fatal? There are risks, he admitted. The technology isn't perfect. But we've made significant improvements over the years. Before I could respond, an alarm began to sound, a soft, pulsing tone that quickly increased in volume and urgency. Dr. Thorne moved with surprising speed to a computer console. We have a problem. Security breach at the main entrance. The monitor showed several figures entering the building, moving with the coordinated precision of trained professionals. Who are they? I asked, moving to look over his shoulder. A government agency that's been trying to shut us down for years, Dr. Thorne replied grimly. They believe our research is too dangerous to continue. Maybe they're right, I muttered. Dr. Thorne turned to face me, his expression suddenly fierce. They don't understand what's at stake. If our work stops, the timelines collapse. There's no debate, no nuance, it's simple cause and effect. The alarm grew louder. On the monitor, I could see the intruders methodically searching the building, moving closer to our location. We're out of time, Dr. Thorne said. You need to decide. Now. I looked at the chamber, then back at the approaching figures on the monitor. What choice did I really have? If what Dr. Thorne said was true, millions of lives depended on my decision. I'll do it, I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. Tell me what to do. Dr. Thorne moved quickly, activating the chamber and entering a series of commands into the control panel. Step inside. The process takes approximately 30 seconds. You'll feel disoriented at first, but it passes quickly. As I approached the chamber, a thought occurred to me. Wait, where's Adam now? I need to speak with him again. There's no time, Dr. Thorne insisted, the urgency clear in his voice. They'll be here any moment. I'm not doing anything until I talk to Adam, I said firmly. He's the only one who can confirm what you're telling me. Dr. Thorne hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. He's in the observation room next door. But hurry. I rushed to the adjacent room and found Adam sitting at a desk, watching the security feeds. He looked up as I entered, unsurprised. You've spoken with Dr. Thorne, he said. Not a question. Is it true? I demanded. All of it. The timelines, the transitions, everything. Adam's expression was unreadable. What do you think? Don't play games with me, I snapped. I need to know if I'm making the right decision. He stood and approached me, close enough that I could see the faint scar above his right eye, identical to my own. I asked myself the same question 2 years ago. And the answer I came to was, does it matter? Of course it matters. Does it? He countered. If Dr. Thorne is telling the truth, then you're saving countless lives. If he's lying, what's the worst that happens? You live a different life for a while. Is that really so terrible? Before I could respond, the door burst open. Dr. Thorne stood there, panic evident on his face. They're here. We have to activate the chamber now. A loud crash came from the laboratory, followed by shouting voices and the sound of equipment being overturned. Adam grabbed my arm. Go. Now. Whatever you decide after today, at least give yourself the chance to decide at all. There was no more time for questions or doubts. I ran back to the laboratory with Adam and Dr. Thorne, where the glass chamber still hummed with energy. The door to the lab burst open just as I stepped into the chamber. Men in tactical gear, weapons raised, stormed into the room. Stop! Federal agents, one of them shouted. Dr. Thorne lunged for the control panel. A shot rang out. The last thing I saw before the blinding light filled the chamber was Dr. Thorne falling, Adam diving for cover, and the federal agents advancing into the room. Then, darkness.